Morning, Brahmadas.
Morning, Brother Shankara. Namaste.
Namaste. How's Shiva this morning?
Shiva's great. He's out patrolling the territory. His buddy came over for like 2 straight days, and he refused to leave. So I actually drove him and Junior to Junior's house and dropped both of them off because Shiva's an adult cat. Junior's still a kitten. I was afraid Junior wouldn't make it home safely. And then Shiva didn't come home for like 3 straight hours, and I was like so scared something might have happened to him. And so when he finally did show up, I was so happy to see him. I was like, "Yay, you're home!"
Well, that's the way we get to feel about these lovely creatures.
Yeah.
We get a sense of how the Lord feels about us.
Oh yeah, yeah. That must be how he feels about us. Yeah.
Yes. That's what those lovely saints say in that book, Love Poems from God.
Mm-hmm.
They're very clear that God is very attached to us.
But I sometimes wonder if that's true, why he gives us such a tough world to live in. But I guess that's something we can't
We give
answer.
ourselves the tough world to live in. He doesn't do it.
Oh yeah.
We do it. We do it through our ego sense, the sense of separation.
Mm.
It's not, God doesn't do it to us. We are that divine presence. But because we have this degraded view of ourselves, William Blake said, we ought to think of ourselves as highly as immortals ought to think. But instead, we think of ourselves as this left mind dominant being that is got all these problems.
Right. Like for example, a water line that goes from my hot water heater to the house leaked, when with all the pressure it sprayed hot water everywhere, and flooded the basement, and it destroyed a door, and I had to deal with all that this week, and that was tough.
Oh yeah. Well, we have all these experiences, but when we have this idea that they're ours, I mean mine.
Right. I tried to remember this is all God's play, and did my mantra as I cleaned up the floor and
Yeah.
just unhinged the door.
And there's no doubt that it's difficult, Brahmadas. There's no doubt that it's difficult for all of us. Mm-hmm. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Ma, namaste. So good to be with you this morning. So good for you to be here. We're studying Swami Prabhavananda's collection of talks published as the book Realizing God. And we're working our way through his talk on yoga, it occurred to me that some of us may not be familiar with the name Patanjali, or only somewhat familiar with it. So I'm just going to take just a moment to talk about Patanjali. According to Swami Prabhavananda, who researched this thoroughly, Patanjali is very hard to pin down. Clearly, he was a sage, a realized soul. His time frame, according to Swami Prabhavananda, was somewhere between 400 BCE and 400 CE. So there's this 800-year window. But what did Patanjali do that is so makes him so special to us? All of these principles of yoga had existed for millennia, thousands of years, in the scriptures and practices of India and elsewhere, China and elsewhere. What Patanjali did was this wonderful work of assembling all this into a workbook. The word sutra means thread. So what is the thread of yoga that runs from his first aphorism, yoga is control of the mind, right through to the end where he describes what he refers to as kaivalya, the state of being independent, that is unconditioned by anything at all. Unlimited, unconditioned. So Patanjali assembled this workbook, which he spoke as a series of aphorisms. These aphorisms need the understanding and explanation of other illumined souls for us to grasp what Patanjali is saying, which is why we're so fortunate to have something like Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary, which he published as the book How to Know God. He published that book, he made the effort to put together that book because he found that his Western disciples had difficulty understanding the language of Swami Vivekananda's book, Raja Yoga. The language was of 100 years before, approximately. The time when Swamiji was growing up, not at the time he passed away. But Swamiji learned to speak this form of English influenced English. And so in any event, Swami Prabhavananda decided that he would, with all deference and gratitude to Swami Vivekananda for what he'd done, and of course Swami Prabhavananda understood it thoroughly and often used it in his own book. So that's the roots of this talk on yoga, and why I decided I'd say something about Patanjali in the background. Any comments or questions before we go ahead? Anything at all from anyone?
Yeah, I feel fortunate that an illumined soul like Swami Prabhavananda left us with this legacy of writings and lectures. It's almost like he's still with us.
Yes, as you've heard it said from here a number of times, it is the experience from here that this is like sitting at the Swami's knee. He spoke so clearly and so plainly. Thank you, Brahmadas. Anything else from anyone? All right. We'll start here. Because I'm still, I've changed the Kindle reader that I'm using. I'm not exactly certain where we left off last week, but this is a good enough place to start. Patanjali points out that yoga is the control of the vagaries of the mind. He calls those vagaries the waves on the lake of the mind. Many ripples and many waves arise, many ripples and many waves arise and distort the reflection on the lake of the mind. The moon is shining, but there are waves and the water is dirty. But if there are waves and the water is dirty, that reflection is not correct. And that is how we misread everything. So I'm going to reread that, and then I'd like you to think if you have any comments or questions about what the Swami means by misread everything. Patanjali points out that yoga is the control of the vagaries of the mind, the tendency of the mind to wander, vagrant. Control of the vagaries of the mind. He calls those vagaries the waves on the lake of the mind. Many ripples and many waves arise and distort the reflection on the lake. The moon is shining, but if there are waves and the water is dirty, that reflection is not correct. And that is how we misread everything. Is it clear what's meant by misread everything? Okay.
Brother Shankara, this is Katrina. Yeah,
Yes, Katrina.
Can you explain that, please?
Okay. Let's go back and use the images or the metaphors that he's talking about.
Okay.
Waves. Somebody's got their. Somebody's making some sound here. Okay. So the mind is compared to a lake. Now we know that if there are waves on the surface of a lake, it does not reflect as beautifully and as clearly as if the lake is perfectly still. We've all seen these lovely pictures taken in natural settings where there's a lake, it's perfectly still. In the background, there are mountains and so on and so forth. And they're perfectly reflected in the water. Now, if you think of the mind as a lake, and he says many ripples and many waves arise and distort the reflection on the lake. Now, the moon is shining. There's a very good reason that the Swami uses the moon as an image here. Our nervous system, as it is constituted as we sit here this morning, is not capable of taking the full blaze of the sun of truth. It's simply not capable of it. It would incinerate our nervous system. If this is why we have to be so careful about things like pranayama, not to do things that expose our nervous system to too much amperage, so to speak, too much voltage. So the moon is the reflection. The reflection is reflected in the the everything we experience. This is a reflection of the truth, but it's distorted by these waves and ripples on the mind. So the moon, if the lake is perfectly still, that reflection will be perfect. We will get a perfect reflection of the truth. The moon is shining, but if there are waves and the water is dirty, what does dirty mean? Dirty means that it is like water in a bucket. If the water is muddy, you can't see the bottom of the bucket. Leave the water alone for a while to be still, everything settles out and you can see the bottom of the bucket. So the water of our mind, so to speak, is dirty by this constant agitation of the waves. So the reflection of the moon, the everything reflected in Maya or our everyday experience, is not correct. And that is how we misread everything. And when the Swami says everything, he is not being just careless in his speech. We misread everything because we have this, particularly in our left mind, this constant agitation of thought waves arising. And because of our many, many years of experience that has all of these mental impressions left in the mind, the water of the lake of the mind is also dirty. That's what that opening paragraph means.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet, Katrina. That's exactly what we needed to do. I'm sure there were others who benefited by your question. Anything else before we go on? So the Swami turns from Patanjali to Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna also talks about Raja Yoga, or the yoga of concentration and meditation throughout the Gita. And so the Swami says, in the Gita, Sri Krishna says, patiently, little by little, a person must free themselves from all mental distractions with the aid of the intelligent will. Patiently, little by little, a person must free themselves from all mental distractions with the aid of the intelligent will. And in order to control the waves of the mind, we have to make the mind one-pointed, which means that we have to realize that God is the one treasure in life. As Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So let's talk a little bit before we go past it about the intelligent will. According to the frame of reference from which Krishna spoke, which was the Sankhya philosophy, manifestation comes about this way. There is that potential for everything that exists called Purusha. There is the potentiator or manifestor of that potential called Prakriti. as a natural consequence, nothing unusual and completely undescribable and undefinable as to why, Purusha, through this potential and the potentiator of Prakriti, the manifestor, begins the process of manifestation. This is called Mahat, or translated into English, the great cause. The first thing that arises in terms of consciousness, what we would think of as consciousness in the great cause, is the intelligent will, which in Sanskrit is called buddhi. You'll find that word, buddhi, buddhi. It means the ability to tell one thing from another, to discriminate, to discern. The next thing that arises is ahamkara. Ahamkara means I maker. The intelligent will, discerning, discerns who is making these decisions, who is making these discernments. Oh, it is I. So this is the devolution, or from unmanifest to manifest. The first thing that happens is the manifestation itself, the great cause. Then the intelligent will becomes evident, the ability to discern one thing from another. And then who can discern one thing from another? Ahamkara. Now, there is only one of each of those. There is still only one at this point. It is this further devolves that we get the gunas, the three attributes of manifestation called tamas, rajas, and sattva. The three gunas then, in their subtle form, create the subtle elements, and of the subtle elements are created the subtle organs of perception and the subtle organs of action, 5 of each. This then becomes the human beings that we are. So this is how this happens. And so when Krishna says, you have to have access to the intelligent will, I'll read that again. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, patiently, little by little, a person must free themselves from all mental distraction with the aid of the intelligent will. So we gain access to the intelligent will through prayer, contemplation, concentration, and meditation, the practice of those things. And when we do, then we reach the state where we have access to the intelligent will that can tell the difference between the real and the unreal, the pleasant and the good, all of those things that we need to know to make spiritual progress. So this business of the intelligent will is fundamental. Most people, and by this I mean most people in the wide world, have no idea there is such a thing as the intelligent will. Most people do not practice prayer, contemplation, concentration, and meditation enough to gain access to this one divine presence, which we experience as the witness, And that witness can tell one thing from another, and there is only one witness, that is the ahamkara, though it appears to be individual in each of us. And so the Swami says, and in order to control the waves of the mind, we have to make the mind one-pointed, which means that we have to realize that God is the one treasure in life, or the one reality. As Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So that was a lot of palaver, a lot of explanation. Was there anything left that you'd like to comment on or ask a question about? And please do. This is what we're doing here, studying the art of spirituality together.
Brother, this is Peter, and I have a question. The terminology, I've found amhankara, excuse me,
Ahamkara.
is a little bit, is it the I sense as in the ego of a person, or is it the I sense as in a larger sense?
It is both.
Okay.
There is, let's use this idea of the reflection. The I maker, the one I maker, the one divine being, consciousness is primary and is not plural. So that one I maker, as I said, our nervous system would not be able to withstand the full sunlight of that presence. So it is reflected in the moonlight. It's reflected in all of manifestation, everything. So that ahamkara, which is primary and is not plural, is reflected in us as the sense of I am. And of course it is. And every one of us who's here this morning has that sense. But our understanding is that's preliminary. As we make spiritual progress, controlling the thought waves of the mind, then we see and clearing the lake water of the mind, so to speak, cleaning it, purifying it by our spiritual practice, that reflection becomes clearer and clearer until we see, as Swami Sridharananda pointed out, we start with the very legitimate feeling and experience, I am. Then through some awakening within us, and then the beginning of spiritual practice, we come to the knowledge, I am, and something else is, something much greater than this sense, this I am is there. Over time, we then develop whatever path we're following, we develop a devotion to realizing or understanding that greater being. So instead of I am and that is, we come to this feeling that that is, and therefore I am. Ultimately, when our perception is perfectly clear, we realize, and it's not something that is an intellectual process, we realize that that alone is. So we've climbed the ladder back up from 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action. Through the gunas, I see the gunas. I've become the witness enough to see all this as something that is happening before me. So then I climb up to, I see that this that I feel that I am is in fact that ahamkara, that's what is causing this feeling of I amness. And then we reach the intelligent will, which says, this is less and this is more. This is the good and this is the pleasant. Discernment, discrimination. And when we begin to have that feeling, we can release that which is no longer satisfactory or useful to us. And as that happens, we transcend the intelligent will and we have some sense of the great cause, of this mahat, of this potentiation of the potential, which is infinite, changeless, eternal, into what we see. And that's when we begin to see, they are the same. They are, as like Sri Ramakrishna says in the gospel, the Brahman and Shakti, the expression of Brahman in a way that we can perceive it, they're identical. But for us right now, that's a thought. That's an intellectual idea. Thank you for asking that question, Peter. That was just right on.
Thank you, brother. That's very helpful.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
in order to get that intelligent will, don't you think a person has to believe in what the scriptures are saying? Get that intelligent will to be born. Okay, I know nothing. Let me try this kind of belief.
Absolutely, you're right, dear.
That arrogant type of thing, we have to put it aside and then see, let me try this. What
Well,
says concentration, contemplation, meditation.
we have to be attracted to it, don't we?
Yes, that's
Something in us has to be attracted to it.
That's exactly.
Begin to feel as the needle has to begin to feel the pull of the magnet.
Exactly. That's
as Sri Ramakrishna says.
Thank you.
Then we have this sense that, well, all these great teachers, one way or another, whether it's Krishna or Jesus or Rama or Vashishta, they all say these things in one way or another. Let me try.
Yes.
Let me try.
We have to have.
And then the process begins.
Then we step up.
Cleaning the waters of the mind.
Right.
Stilling the waves of the mind. In the beginning, it doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It seems like the mind is a mad elephant. We're not going to be able to ever be able to bring it under control.
Thank you, Brother Shankar. I just wanted to.
That's why what Sri Krishna says, patiently, little by little. And this is why Swami Sri Dharananda, this darling Swami that's now in Australia and New Zealand, says it happens slowly and slowly, my dear. It came to this situation slowly and slowly. So it's not going to go away fast for most of us. There is the example of Scrooge. He had a great awakening experience in one night. And this Swami Prabhavananda was asked, is this possible? Yes, it's possible. Very rare, but possible. For most of us, it happens patiently, little by little. And so that's why Swami Prabhavananda's 4 instructions for contemplation, concentration, and meditation are these. First, the understanding that the chosen ideal, that aspect of the divine presence, in whatever form or formless way you perceive it, the chosen ideal is you yourself. No different. You are that ahamkara. You are that buddhi. You are that mahat. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. Second instruction, patience. If you're impatient, it's just another distraction of the mind. You have to be patient and you have to persevere. The third instruction, perseverance. And the fourth, the joyous one, the fourth instruction, expectation. This will happen. If I hold that thought that the divine presence and what appears here are identical, no matter how it seems to me now, and I patiently and perseveringly means doing it every day. It's like anything else. As Vivekananda said, education is nothing more than the training of the nerves. This is a special kind of nerves, the spiritual nerves, but they're there anyway. They're represented by the chakras and all this business. So, training of the nerves. If you are going to become a very skillful tennis player, capable of competing in whatever age and capability bracket you're in, you wouldn't do it by practicing for an hour once a week. You'd go to a good teacher and you would practice day in and day out and day in and day out. Same thing if you were to want to become a chess master. You would not become a chess master by playing chess once a week with somebody who's just about as good as you are. No, you'd go to a good teacher and they would beat you time and time and time again. And they would point out to you where you're making the mistakes that allow them to beat you. Slowly and slowly over 5, 7 years, you would grasp the principles and practices of chess and you would become a chess master. It's identical. Identical. And as Haima said earlier, what makes it possible? Our provisional faith that what the teacher is telling us will result in this higher experience of spiritual reality. Now, when you're with a tennis champion as a teacher or a chess master as a teacher, there they are. Well, there are great teachers accessible to us. I mean, some of you who are here on the screen are disciples of Swami Yogeshananda. Some of you are disciples of Swami Sarvadevananda. And those people are available to you. Yogeshananda may have left the body, but you don't think he's inaccessible. Those of you who are his disciples, if you make the sincere, heartfelt effort, you will know his presence. So we see these great ones, and that's why it's good to spend time in holy company, because it reinforces the belief that, as Haima said, is so necessary. Anything else?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Robert.
this is Robert. I agree with you 100% about the practice and the repetition and that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I found generally in life, when you make a rule out of something, something changes sometimes.
Ah, yes.
Now, my experience is I'll go and I'll practice, and at a point, it's necessary to kind of just get away from it. And I come back to it with a renewed interest, and I can go places that I have never gone before. The horizons are expanded. Can you explain that?
Of course, Robert, of course, you're absolutely right. If we force ourselves to do things, there's such a subtle difference between commitment and, as you said, making a rule. Now, people who live as monastics, they have vows, which are rules. And they do their best to stick to those. But even so, those vows are a plea to the divine presence to help them do this. So as you said, there are times when you are going to break away. Now, Swami Vivekananda explains this by saying that reality as we experience it is a wave form. Waveform. We have these peak experiences, peak times, everything's wonderful, and then we sink down and we go into a trough. And in those times, it may be very hard to continue our practice. It doesn't mean we've given up or turned cheat. We just can't right then, or don't want to. You just get a case of, I don't want to. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. As you said, you return to it as the waveform rises again and becomes another uprising wave. The enthusiasm returns and it carries you, as you pointed out, it carries you even higher. So that's the other side of patience, to be patient and forgiving with oneself when practice just seems not possible at a particular time, or you're just distracted by something else. You just get pulled away by something else. Every one of the great teachers says it is always a potential to be pulled away, to be distracted. Not to worry. Thank you, Robert. That's exactly right.
That explains why it happens. But the part that I'm more interested in is when I come back to it and I can reach heights that I wasn't able to reach before. That's what I can't understand. It seems that I'm gaining technique by the practice, but in this particular case, it seems that I'm gaining techniques by no practice. It seems to be coming from another source.
I have a suggestion for something for you to read, Robert. Read Swami Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger. And he talks about what's happening when we're in that trough. We're storing up energy. And that is what produces the next wave. And yes, it carries us higher. So read Swami Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger, and it's one of the places in which he gives real detail on what is meant by this waveform.
I have Vivekananda's complete works, 8 volumes, books. Where would I find that in there?
Oh, I don't remember which volume it's in, Robert.
You don't know which volume it's in. Okay.
I'll guarantee you it's
Well, what's the title?
Christ the Messenger.
Christ the
And it was
Messenger.
delivered in Pasadena in 1900. So you'll find it in those collections, that collection of talks delivered in California in 1900. I don't think they're the volumes of Swamiji's complete works are not organized chronologically, so you'll just have to look for it, Robert. But you'll find it.
Oh, and Robert, if I could add to that, if you have a cassette player, I have the cassette, Christ the Messenger. So if you want to listen to it, I could drop it off at the center. Just let me know.
Okay. Okay.
That's Swami Prabhavananda. Who's reading Christ the Messenger? Ramadas? Who's reading on that cassette?
The readings from the lectures of Vivekananda, it doesn't say who's doing the reading.
Okay, it's all right.
Vivekananda Foundation.
Oh, yeah, all right.
That's who's doing it.
Yeah, that Vivekananda Foundation was a group of women in Northern California who sponsored a lot of these kinds of things. Wonderful, wonderful group of women. So, anything else from anyone?
Well, I'll look through the volumes to see if I can find it there.
Oh, you'll
If I
find
can't
it.
find it there.
You'll find it, Robert. You can. One way to do it is just go online and Google Christ the Messenger and Vivekananda Christ the Messenger, and it'll tell you what volume it's in.
Okay.
The citations will tell you what volume it's in.
That's
If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say volume 5, but that's just a guess.
Brother Shankar, I just want to make
Okay.
one comment. Take up too much time from reading. It's what you and Robert said is true. Once you are on that path of meditation, after some time, you don't even have to sit in the meditation. You are finding your answers and you're reaching new heights. That's exactly what he was talking about, because you're already on that illumination path. So slowly you're understanding the universe in a better perspective. You're understanding, you're getting answers for your questions. Automatically they get answered slowly, 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 even without sitting in the meditation room or meditation time.
Yes.
I think that's what Robert was experiencing, and I totally agree with that. Thank you so much. I'll let you do the
Excellent. Thank you from both of you.
And I see Shirad posted the link to the lecture on our chat, so you can always click on that too if you want to read it.
Okay. And Brother Shankar, there's one other thing that came to me when you were talking earlier about what it came to me was distractions. It seems that to me that you cannot, if you eliminate the distractions, then you're not experiencing this world truly as it is. So you have to be able to go to where you want to go and be where you want to be with the distractions. My experience was that once I discovered that I was not my mind, then I was able to think of the Atman, myself, is being me, and then that mind is it. So I am.
Talking loud one.
And it is. Because as long as I think of this it as being me, it becomes significant. Mm-hmm. And if I think of it as it, then it's like it's a teacher or an advisor, a helper. It's sometimes a distractor. So you have to be, if I can handle it that way,
Well,
then I can benefit from it, whether it's so-called right or wrong.
that,
I can.
precisely, Robert. This is the highest ideal you're talking about. This is Sri Ramakrishna's non-duality, that there is no difference between the potential Brahman and the manifestation, Shakti. So what we in the beginning see as distractions, later we see as simply the play of Shakti that is witnessed by the Atman as we sit in that witness chair. So yes, you're absolutely right. And another thing you might want to read and find in the complete volumes and read is Swami Vivekananda's meditation, so to speak, on self-determination. It's another talk that he gave in England, and it's called Every Man His Own Sect, SECT, Every Man His Own Sect. We ultimately come to our own perfect understanding of what it is that is embodied as the uniqueness of Robert Ayres. You come to that understanding, and it won't be identical with everybody else's. Why on earth are there hundreds and hundreds of books in a spiritual library? Because each person is telling their own story. Each one of those authors. Eckhart Tolle tells you a little bit different story than Nisargadatta. Nisargadatta tells you a little bit different story than Ramana Maharshi. They all tell you a different story than Sri Ramakrishna, but they're all telling you basically the same story. I am that.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, so good to hear your voice, dear.
thank you, Brother Shankara. I think my questions were sort of already answered in the discussion of the last several minutes. So my thing is more or less to reinforce to myself that when we are like thrown about in this transactional world because of the gunas and the samskaras going wild, sometimes, I mean, I guess, you know, the perseverance, patience, company of saints, joining, you know, the teachers sitting at those are all the tools that I guess drive that stake in that provisional faith deeper.
Yes.
For example, this morning, for whatever reason, I was so tamasic to join. My mind was just resisting, but somehow my heart made me do it, and I'm so glad I did. So I guess, you know, the support system is so important because until we get above that bottleneck, it's just tossing us about like a whatever, the choppy ocean. So I don't know if you have any more thoughts to add.
Well, just that you're so right. All of what you've said is so right. And there's a very good reason that we gather together like this on a Saturday morning, because it does reinforce and it does help us and it does help answer our doubts and questions, because that is the nature of particularly the left mind, to generate doubts and questions. And until we learn to still that mind, which is a never-ending process. If you read the last two chapters of Adi Shankaracharya's Vivekachudamani, you'll see that even the illumined soul, as long as they remain embodied, are subject to their prarabdha karma. And so there's distractions or these potentials for falling away. As Robert said, distractions are not distractions when you see them from the right perspective, but that requires the ability to sit in that perspective and not be dragged away from it. As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, even the wise, by the wise he means the illumined, even the illumined can be dragged from the path. And so we have to be patient with ourselves. When we are dragged from the path, we have to say, okay, that's what happened. What's done is done. Let me go forward. And I'm very
Thank you,
glad that you that there was enough motivation for you to join us, because it's always wonderful to hear your voice and to have your comments and questions.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else before we read a little bit more?
Hari Om Shankaraji.
Well, hello there, Bala. So good to hear your voice.
The last sentence, what you said, even the wise people are going to be dragged away unless they, protect themselves. Shankaracharya in the Vivek Chudamani has 12 shlokas on that topic alone.
Yes.
And
And what I quoted to you was from Sri Krishna in the Gita. I think it's in chapter 6. Even the wise, 5 or 6, even the wise can be dragged from the path.
Yeah.
And if even the illumined souls can be dragged from the path, how much more patient must we be with ourselves? Before we've had that state of realization, and then how do we see the being dragged from the path? Well, this is why I recommended anybody who wants to read it, Swami Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger, because he explains in such beautiful detail this waveform nature of existence and how we rise high and then we sink down. But as we sink down, what's happening is energy is being gathered and stored, and it then carries us forward and higher. And it's absolutely just the nature of manifestation. That's what he says.
I'd like to say, I just like to, it's so wonderful that a group like this can exist. It's a rare situation, and we are extremely blessed, each one of us, to be a part of this. And it's because out here in the world, you talk to people and they look at you like, what are you talking about? They don't understand at all. No. But to be with a group like this that's understanding and you being able to discuss what's coming up for each of us in our meditation and in our day-to-day lives it helps each of us to move a little forward. Absolutely. Only if it's just an inch.
Absolutely, and a hard 1 inch, isn't it, Robert? A hard.
Yeah.
But you're so right, so right. And blessed we are to be able to study the art of spirituality together, and to be looked over as a child by the divine and supported and nourished by the divine, which is how we come to see it. Anything else? Well, that was just beautiful. Thank you, Bala. Thank you, Robert. Yes, exactly. So we have to make the mind one-pointed, which means that we have to realize that God is the one treasure in life, the one real reality in life. Everything else is an expression of that. As Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now, what happens when you try to concentrate your mind upon God? So many distractions, so many waves arise. Just at the moment you are trying to meditate and worship, all the distractions come. They have to be controlled. When they are controlled, the mind becomes crystal clear and the reflection becomes perfect. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, pure mind and pure Atman are the same. They become identified. Not this mind, but purified heart and mind realizes the Atman. And that's what Robert was talking about earlier. When we begin to have this sense, oh no, I am not this mind that's full of vagaries and so on. That exists. I'm aware of it. It's part of the experience. But the experiencer is the Atman. And the face of that Atman that we can be aware of within time, space, and causation, the face of that Atman we call the witness. And so that's when we move closer and closer to that. We are closer and closer to that purified mind that will identify itself, as the Swami just said, will identify itself with the Atman. Oh, that is who I am. That is that we started this with the intelligent will. That intelligent will, of which there is only one, that is reflected in us. That is what I am. So it's just noon. Is there anything else from anyone? All right, my dear.
Shankaraji,
Yes, Bala.
same thing in Drisha Viveka, it presents in a different mode for us to understand and follow. Actually, they talk about three eyes. The first two are the relative eyes, and the third one is the absolute eye. Like this is between the seer and seer. The eyes are the first eye, which is the seer, but it is seen by the mind. So this is a relative seer, and the mind becomes the seer for the eyes. But the mind becomes the seeing for the Atma, and that's how we have to transcend from one to the other.
Ultimately, when the mind is purified,
Yes.
we will fully understand what Meister Eckhart, the great Catholic mystic saint, meant when he said, "The same eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. There is one, only one." So thank you, Bala. Somebody else wanted to say something. When Bala started talking, somebody else was also talking.
Yes, Brother Shankara, I just wanted to
Yes, sir.
say, I think something that gave rise to me during this discussion today was how Vedanta seems to be more like unlearning than learning.
Well, you can think of it that way. Yes, you can. We unlearn our addiction and our entanglement with the things of the world until we can see them differently, until we can see that they are simply the play of Shakti, of the primal energy in expression. So, but yes, we have to first say no to a lot of things that we have said yes to for so long. Why? Because they occupy our time and attention. And we come to see that they don't deserve that much time and attention. Thank you, Aaron. That's exactly right. Unlearning. And it isn't just Vedanta. If you study the Christian scriptures, you'll find that Christ asks us to become as simple as a child, to unlearn our addiction to that which the moths can eat and rust corrode. And Jesus is sweet and it just captivates. His simplest and shortest teaching. It's in the Gospel of Thomas. Be passers-by. Be passers-by. Swami Prabhavananda said the same thing in these words. If we can just see ourselves as the Atman and look at the things of the world objectively, everything will be all right. And that objectively is a pun. If we see the things of the world as objects, and we are the only subject, we are the Atman, we are the only subject, everything else is object, then we can be passers-by. Very appreciative passers-by. If what we're witnessing, if what we're passing by deserves it. There's no reason not to stop and dance at the carnival, ride the Ferris wheel, have some cotton candy. But don't stay at the carnival. I have a recommendation for anybody who is interested in television watching at all. There's a new series, a new masterpiece series on PBS called All Creatures Great and Small. It's really a wonderful, wonderful series. It's that's reminding me to take a pill. So, anything else from anyone, dears?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yeah, can you repeat that new TV series when it's on and who's it by?
I don't know when it's on, dear. I watched it streaming last night. I think it's All Creatures Great and Small. And I think it's on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. But that's just a vague little memory I have.
Okay.
I think that's when it comes on. But if you just go online and search for All Creatures Great and Small, it'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
It's a wonderful, it's a beautifully it just, the title itself tells you a lot.
Hmm. It's not on PBS, is it?
It is on PBS.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
a masterpiece production.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere, to all creatures great and small. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Tomorrow morning we'll talk about chapter 4 of the Gita. Renunciation through knowledge. Krishna is always relevant. So I'm going to sign off.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Robert, so glad you said what you said about our gathering. Yes, it's very true. So blessed we are. So blessed we are to have one another. See you again soon.